are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acomb, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. And in that studio, during the Steuben Senior Services Fund interview section of our program, we have Caleb Slater. Welcome back to the show.
Hey, Frank, I'm so glad to be back on.
How long has it been? It's been about a year, hasn't it?
It has, yeah, it has.
So you're campaigning for the 48th District, New York State Senate. How's the campaign been going since the last time we spoke?
Campaign has really kicked off, and I'm endorsed by the New York State Conservative Party. I won the endorsement of the Cayuga County Republican Committee, which is not that far from where we are.
Right.
And we are in primary season. June 25th is the primary, and then we are going to win that and then take back the seat in November.
That's great. Has there been any surprises? As like I said, it's been about a year since we talked. You're just getting into it, you're new, but you started really early, which is impressive because a lot of people wait till the last minute, it seems like, as Republicans, doesn't it, very often? So you got in early and you really started working hard. Has there been any surprises?
That's a great question in terms of has there been any surprises. I've certainly learned a lot just in general about the district. I mean, one of the things that caught my attention for listeners to know, 49% of the vote went to Lee Zeldin in the governor race in 22. So that's one of the reasons why I've come out here is to let people know, we have a responsibility as Republicans that are in more red seats like the one out here to help those in swing seats because every seat makes a difference.
Yes, we couldn't agree more. We talk about it on the program so often. We talk with our state senator, Tom O'Mara, on the program quite frequently. And ever since, and we'll get into this in a little more detail, but you look at the budget process and you look at what's going on in Albany, and ever since it's become a Democrat supermajority, I mean, nothing's off the table. The things that we used to laugh about and say that'll never pass, they're now being passed. I mean, you look at bail reform, for heaven's sakes, and we've done nothing with the number one issue being public safety. Come on.
One of the issues that was of concern since the last time that I was on your show was the raise the age, or excuse me, they're not just the raise the age, not just the cashless bail, but we're also looking at what's called the Clean Slate Act.
Yes. Which makes no sense because because they said the business community supports it, okay? Well, the business community, if they want to hire someone with that kind of record, they could before. Why do they almost need to trick other people into doing it as well? Does that make sense?
Well, again, this is where Albany, when you have a supermajority by one party, you're not allowing opposite voices onto the table and bring some sort of a compromise to something more sensible. The idea of somebody getting a second chance is something I think a lot of Republicans would agree with. But the idea that across the board every single criminal automatically gets their record expunged, I don't agree with the idea that the business community agrees with that. There's, I'm sure, a lot of different opinions on that, and listeners should know that my opponent, Rachel May, was the sponsor of that bill.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Is it issues like that why you decided to run? I don't want to put words in your mouth, so let me ask you that way. Why did you decide to run? Because it's not an easy gig to run.
I decided to run because I'm tired of seeing New York go into a decline. This was once the land of the American dream where people came from all over legally.
That's another issue, right?
So I had two options. I'm either going to run or I'm going to run away.
Yeah, boy, that's a great way of putting it. And how many people, we have this happen on the program a lot, where someone, especially around budget time, it seems, people will just write in and say, I'm making, and you've probably seen the polls, but the 5-year plan. We're going to leave in 5 years. We got to start making the plan. And the polls show that a very good chunk of New Yorkers have that exact mindset that we're not going to be here forever.
New York is not only leading the nation in outward migration, but according to the Tax Foundation, New York has the worst tax burden in the entire country. And
does this budget recently passed, does that do anything to keep people here? It doesn't.
No.
If anything, it drives more people away.
Correct.
When you do the research, I know you keep up on it. What are your major, policy platforms? What are you running on that are the passions for you?
Yeah, I actually have a bunch of those outlined here. So when I look at what's going on in the country and in our state,
of course,
one of the top ones is putting New Yorkers first. We've got illegal aliens being given credit cards. We've got them being housed in our hotels. And while I have sympathy for people that are suffering, I also know that 10% of our homeless in the state are veterans.
That's a great point. Have you been getting a lot of, because I know you've been talking to a lot of people on the campaign trail. Has that been a major issue when we talk about the homelessness problem?
It has been. Actually, the largest municipality in my district is the city of Syracuse, which is in the top 20 for the entire country for homelessness. one of the things that has made me different as a Republican is not only have I been going to our typical areas, you know, the gun clubs, the pro-lifers,
Sure.
the evangelicals, but I've also been going into the South Side, the inner city.
Oh, wow.
And when I talk to black voters who historically vote Democrat, they'll tell you, this doesn't feel like a sanctuary to me.
What's the reception been like? And I think that's important for Republicans to do, and we don't always do it. But to go to places that aren't necessarily friendly to us, quote unquote. What's the reception been like for you?
The reception has been like, for me, mixed bag.
Sure.
You know, there are people that said, wow, you're the first Republican that's actually come out here.
Which is sad.
You know, the saying in the black community is Democrats only see us once every other year when they pander, and then we never see them again. At least Republicans are honest about where they stand because they don't show up at all. The second thing that I've gotten were people that were shocked. And they're like, why are you, you know, you're down here. You agree with me on this, this, and this. Why are you Republican? And the way that I've been able to message it is I said, I want to reform our party from the inside. You know, we should be coming down here. We should be offering solutions for this community. We should be not allowing the crime to continue to, honestly, let's use the word, terrorize the neighborhood.
Right.
And when people hear that, they say, I never thought of it like that. You're the first Republican I've ever considered voting for.
Isn't that interesting? Now, I received a comment from a viewer. I don't remember if last time we did this, but I think this is interesting. As a result of the wild Democrat decisions here, meaning in Albany, this could be the last best time in New York State history to change it to blue to red. You think right now is our chance?
I think we have a really good chance. If you look at the 2022 election and the difference between that and 2018 for governor, we saw a plus 19 Democrat governor race go to a plus 4. You look at the fact that it was New York State that won Republicans the House of the Representatives, and that's including the fact that all the Republicans have moved to Florida.
Right.
It's the independents and the moderate Democrats. I will tell you this. I have met a lot of Democrats in more rural towns and even in the cities who say they don't align with the AOCs, the Ilhan Omars, the Kathy Hochul's. They're a Kennedy-style Democrat.
Sure.
They align more with you and I and its audience than they do with the modern left.
And don't you think that could be, this is more at the national level, but when you see this chaos on college campuses and, you know, you have Democrats like you're talking about that maybe we're a Kennedy Democrat that don't align with what's being done there, doesn't that maybe shift and maybe open some eyes for these Democrats to say, let's give the Republican a chance?
I was just at Syracuse University the other day and I saw the 50 tents, and the first question that I had is, who's paying for them?
I know. And everybody says in the same tense. Everybody's so good at pinpointing that. But yeah, who is paying for it? And they're a lot of times being torn down and then right back up. I don't know about you, but when I went to college, I didn't have a tent in my dorm room to just go out camping in the afternoon.
A lot of the people there also, we have facts to prove, are not college students.
Right.
They're agent provocateurs. They're professional activists. And the ones who are college students, I saw a video that went viral on Twitter of someone at Columbia.
Yeah.
They were asked, you know, what exactly are you trying to do to stop Columbia University? And the student said, why are we here?
Yeah, isn't that pathetic? And I guess I should be better educated on this, they said. Well, think about that future. I don't want to get on this because I talk about it all the time, but think about that future when you go and hand your resume to a job that you want, and they see Columbia class of 2024, and you were on the side of the anti-Semitic protests. It's not going to be a good sign for your future. So the decisions you make today on college campuses will have a major impact in just a few months.
It's not just the students. When I was a student at Ithaca College.
Okay, so you know.
Oh, I've seen it. It was so radical. That's actually what turned me conservative, oddly enough. Heather McDonald was saying at the time that the left-wing indoctrination on our college campuses are not just affecting the college, but all of these people are going to graduate, and they're going to take those ideas into the job force. That's why now we're seeing Anheuser-Busch and all these companies go woke, is because it's those indoctrinated students now taking over those companies.
I couldn't agree more. We talked about this on the program. I used to talk about it when I was on radio. We would always laugh at the beginning and say, those crazy kids, when they get to the real world, they're not going to survive. No, the real world actually adapted to them, and that's what we're seeing today. And I think we're going to continue to see it. But I know you didn't come in here to talk about college campuses. I've been doing this a lot lately, so I apologize. You've got a lot coming up, and I want to talk about an event you have coming up in just a little bit. But before that, let's talk about your stance on gun rights.
Yes, the stance on gun rights is one of the most important stances and strongest stances that I hold. I have an A rating from Gun Owners of America.
Good for you.
I'm a member of pretty much every Second Amendment organization you can name. The National Association for Gun Rights, the NRA, all of them, pretty much. Where is my stance? The primary function of the Second Amendment is personal defense.
Mm-hmm.
Defense not only against the radical criminals that are being let out on the street,
Right.
but a defense against a tyrannical government.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that right that protects every other right that we have in this country.
And what a great point, because at a time when, as we mentioned earlier, public safety is the number one concern for people in New York State. And so unfortunately, it's gotten to the point where there's so many victims that didn't need to be victims because of the bail reform laws. You know, the guy gets out and does it, the girl or whoever does it finds some new victim. So it is an important time to be talking about gun rights at a time when obviously we live in a state that isn't very favorable towards gun rights.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. In my district, there's this town called Jordan Elbridge, right? It is a big gun shop called Tim's Guns. Mm-hmm. There were kids that broke into there, stole guns. They weren't collectors. I think we have a good idea as to what they were using them for.
Right.
They got let back out on the street. But yet if you or I want to go to that same gun shop, we got to pay $2.50 for ammunition background fee through the New York State Police, and we got to pay $9 per gun. These hoodlums, whether they're stealing them or they're getting them, whether the shady parts of Elmira, Binghamton, Albany, Utica, Syracuse,
right,
they're not paying that fee.
No, they're not paying that fee. And also, think of the cost for your pistol permit if you want to go that direction. I mean, the cost and the time that it takes to consume. So you and I, if we want to do that, we go through all that. We follow the laws. The people breaking in, like you said, to a gun store are not following those laws. They're not waiting there for their pistol permit to come in.
Correct.
We got to take a short break. Can you stay with us?
Sure.
All right, we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. And we are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I am your host, Frank Acomb. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, and this is the Stu Benz Senior Services Fund section of the program, as Caleb Slater is our guest running for New York State Senate District 48. We were talking about gun rights and your strong support of gun rights. We were talking about how much we enjoy being members of SCOPE and talking about SCOPE. But you have something really interesting coming up on May 16th. Could you tell us about this?
Yes, I'm proud to share with your listeners that Dick Heller, who was the plaintiff in the landmark Supreme Court case, D.C. versus Heller, is actually coming to upstate New York. It'll be at the Camillus Elks Lodge off 6117 Newport Road, Camillus, New York, on May 16th, giving a speech specifically not just about how he won his case, but how we as New Yorkers can fight against the radical bureaucrats in Albany and uphold our rights here as well.
Oh, this is amazing. I honestly didn't know that he gave speeches that often. I mean, I don't think he's been in our area before.
I think this is the first time he's come to upstate New York.
Yeah. Talk about, he knows the hurdles we have to get over, right? So this is a perfect opportunity. Where can people find out more? I know it's coming up on May 16th. I'll find out more about being a part of it, buying tickets, and those type of things.
Yeah, you can. It's a partnership between him and my campaign. Okay. So all the proceeds do go to my campaign to ending that Democrat supermajority. VoteCalebSlater.com/events. That's VoteCalebSlater.com/events. We've got people from all over the state coming to this, from Rochester, Penn Yan, Utica, and you're not going to want to miss this, because you can take the information that he's going to share back to your area and start the fight to uphold our rights.
I know we have a lot of people that watch this program that are members of SCOPE or are involved in gun rights. So what a great opportunity, a fun event in general, just to hear him speak and get to, I assume, meet him and get to hear more from you. You'll be giving a speech, I would hope, right?
Absolutely.
Oh, good. So we're talking about your race. How has things changed? I know we talked about some of the surprises you've had, but when we first met together about a year ago, have you found that things have changed for you? Has it been kind of the projection that you wanted it to be at this point? Is it good, bad? Where are you at?
There's a lot of party insiders on both sides of the aisle who a year ago thought the incumbent was going to win easily, just because Democrats hold an enrollment advantage. But there's a lot of changes that have made it so the Democrats are now scared.
Oh, interesting.
For starters, this is a district that Lee Zeldin got 49% of the vote in, and that's without him doing the groundwork here. A lot of his groundwork was in New York City, and he overperformed there, so that was worth it. The other thing is I've got a lot of momentum behind me. I've been working very hard on the ground, and people are seeing that there's a real chance of winning this. So why should someone from this side of the state care if I'm not in your district.
Right.
My answer to that is, how many times have bureaucrats in New York City who don't represent you taken away your rights?
Right.
It's time for us to get somebody in there in a seat that we can win, that can fight for our rights. And this is the most viable seat in all of New York for us as Republicans to win.
To switch it over to red. That's interesting. Have you seen the momentum going towards, like what you said, when you talk to people, you've been getting a really good reception. So do you feel at the end of the day, when the smoke clears, that this could very well go red?
We're going to win this seat.
That's great. Then good. I like that attitude. What are some of your main goals? I know we've talked about gun rights, but what are some of your main goals if you were elected in November?
So our issues are protecting your life, liberty, and ability to pursue happiness. So life, we talked about public safety. I mean, the national news just hit. The 2 officers that were slain in New York were in my district.
Oh, okay.
The Onondaga Sheriff's deputy and the Syracuse police officer. That's something we need to make sure that we take care of. Liberty, I am against totally the electrification of our state. Our grid can't handle it. The technology is not available to go all electric, and it's a violation of our freedom. If you want a gas-powered car or stove, that's your right.
Right.
And then lastly, ability to pursue happiness. We talked a lot about that at the beginning. People aren't happy because the taxes and regulations are preventing them from being able to be all that they can be.
I mean, you think about now, it's tax season. It's a little over tax season. Look at how much we're paying the state, and then you get a $237 billion budget. And they just act, our Assemblyman Phil Palmisano says it all the time. It's as if they forget that they're spending taxpayers' dollars. It's not their dollars. It gets very frustrating, and that's why we had another viewer when we were in break said if we could get this changed in New York and we could go red, they'd think about moving back, because that's how often people are moving out of this area. I get comments. It's not just, it's anecdotal, but it's not just in the news articles where it says mass exodus. You know it on an individual level. I'm sure you've had family, friends that have had to finally leave the state.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I said at the beginning, I'm either going to run or I'm going to run away.
Right.
One half of my family came here legally from the Dominican Republic, July 4th, 1970. Most of them are now Florida residents.
Is that right? So there you go. When you talk to the people on the ground, what have you heard is their biggest issues?
Well, when it comes to independents or Democrats, what they're saying is that they're just sick of the division. They want people to stop being children and actually get stuff done.
Yeah.
When it comes to Republicans, it's the border. And a lot of people will say, well, you're running for state office. What can you really do about that? There's a lot you could do about that. The Democrats want to talk about electric buses. The only buses I want to talk about are sending the illegals back to where they came from.
Right. That's a good point.
The second thing is, we got to talk about the northern border. People forget that we're a bordering state.
Yeah.
So what's changed since the last time that I've talked to you? I've talked to Border Patrol agents at what's called the Swanton sector of the northern border that covers New York, Vermont, and there's another state in there. They've seen over a 200% increase in border crossings.
Wow.
And I'll share you one anecdotal story. Somebody crossed in Clinton County, a Venezuelan. Don't know how he got up to Canada, but he did. And he was arrested last December in Utica, New York for child pornography.
Unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And like you said, it has been something that's been seriously overlooked. I will say our Congressman Nick Langworthy has been doing a very good job, because he's up from that general area, doing a great job of speaking out about the troubles at the northern border. It's very easy, like you said, to focus on the southern, but we can't take for granted that there's real major issues coming in from the north as well. But we got to take another short break. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Welcome back to the Stu Ben Senior Services Fund section of our program, as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Our guest this morning is Caleb Slater. He is candidate for New York State Senate District 48. Caleb, we don't have a ton of time left on the program, but I got a couple quick questions for you. First of all, where do you think your conservative values came from?
My conservative values came from the fact that I grew up in the Southern Tier.
Yeah.
This is just a strong conservative. It's a conservative stronghold, And growing up in the small town of Dundee, New York,
Yeah, of course.
people want to be left alone from the government and left to their own devices.
And you have family from our area, right? Right in town.
Yeah, my mother lives just down the street, not even 5 minutes from your station.
Oh, isn't that funny? Okay, well, there you go. So one of the things we haven't really talked about, we talked about the issues that you find the most important, but let's talk about the race itself. Is there a primary? What's a general look like? Kind of give us a little bit of the background there.
Yes, there is a primary on June 25th, and one of the things that I have been saying a lot to Republicans is that, yes, we need to beat the Democrats. Yes, we need to make sure we win in November, but we also need to hold our party accountable. And if there's a candidate that's running that doesn't share our values, we need to make sure that they don't win. We need to make sure that they don't get past the primary. So I've got actually a visual here, a little cross comparison for listeners.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's myself on one side and my Republican primary opponent Fannie on the other, where I was invited to the White House under Trump administration to talk about free speech. She was invited to Kathy Hochul's mansion to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. So if you want somebody that is going to be a supporter of Hochul and BLM and Planned Parenthood, then you vote for my opponent. But if you want someone that's going to uphold the Constitution, that's going to stand for life, liberty, and the ability to pursue happiness, if any of your listeners have friends in Cayuga or Onondaga counties, make sure that they get out to vote on the June 25th Republican primary.
And then I want to talk about the general, too. But before that, how was Kellyanne Conway? Was she nice?
She was amazing.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'd like to meet. I think she did a great job. I don't know if is she doing anything behind the scenes, I wonder, for the campaign? For Trump's campaign, I wonder?
I'm sure she's doing something for Trump's campaign. I will say that she has come to upstate New York before. She was actually the keynote speaker for the New York Federation of Republican Women's annual banquet last year.
Oh, okay. No, that's good. That's really neat. Got to meet her. So we talked about the primary coming up on June 25th. What when the smoke clears there, what does the general election look like?
The general election, again, that looks like we are going to have a grassroots effort in order to get our message out there and win in November. Any listeners who want to support ending the Democrat supermajority, they can contribute to our campaign at votecalebslater.com/donate.
Are you glad that you did all this? Because I know it's a lot of work.
You know what? I am glad. I have learned a lot throughout the process. And I think that anyone who is critical of elected officials, which they should be, they should run themselves, and they'll see that there's a lot on the inside that they probably didn't know about.
And isn't that really interesting? Just even because at the very local level, I'm a town council, and you forget about how difficult the petition process is. You forget kind of the little things until you're right in the thick of it. And do you think that's one of the reasons why more people don't get involved? Because of the not knowing, it's almost intimidating?
I think it's a combination of the fact that there's a lot of, you're right, the petitioning, I mean, between the cover sheet and making sure that it's
every little thing.
It's the township, not the mailing address. And the dates are right. Yeah. I think that's part of it. But I think the other part is that there is a lot of, how do I want to say this in the most appropriate way possible? There's a lot of nonsensical infighting within the parties over small little things. A lot of pettiness is the fakeness, I would say, about things that don't matter. Not about policy, but about just little things that turn off the average Joe, and they say, you know what? I'm just going to live my life. And
and that's what's so unfortunate. When we first started this program, we talked about there was a poll out that showed that people just lost faith in their community and patriotism, in their faith, lost faith. And I thought, why are we not more community minded? And that's why I've always encouraged, and that's why I'm glad you've come on the show now twice. I've always tried to encourage people to run. I mean, I think if you can get in there, what you're going to do in Albany is going to affect my day-to-day life a lot more than what's going to happen at the presidential level. And the same goes at the town level. The town's going to affect my day-to-day life because it's where you live, right? And I think if more people got involved instead of sitting in the back and yelling and screaming about politics at the national level or whatever the political pop culture issue is of the day, we'd be much better off. And I think they'd have more respect for their community.
And you know what? You asked the question earlier, is there anything that surprised me since I've run? Mm-hmm. What surprised me is how much more passionate I am about the state and local level now than the federal level. That's great. I didn't even know who my assemblyman or congressman was, or senator was before I ran. Now I know who a lot of the people are. And what I'll say this to the audience is, we all live under the same federal jurisdiction.
Right.
But the states have a shift in population right now. We talked about that earlier. Why is that? Because it's the state and local level that has more control of your day-to-day life,
right,
as it should be. Mm-hmm. It's very hard to get in touch with your congressman or congresswoman, but You could probably run into me at a Wegmans on a Sunday afternoon.
Right. Where everybody else is spending their Sunday afternoon, too, at the Wegmans. That's funny. We got a comment from a viewer. Nice to meet you, Caleb. Good luck.
Hey, thank you.
How can people help your campaign?
Yes, people can help my campaign if they want to contribute. VoteCalebSlater.com/donate, or if they want to volunteer, you can actually phone bank or stuff letters from right here out in the Corning area. You don't have to be in Syracuse or Auburn. You can do that remotely. So go on to VoteCalebSlater.com/volunteer, fill out the form, and we'd love to get you involved because, again, this is the most critical seat in all of New York.
And that's the best place. VoteCalebSlater.com is the best place to find out more about your event. Just before we go, because I want to mention that one more time, Dick Heller will be coming to the area. Could you give us the specifics on that just before we go?
Yes, Dick Heller will be coming to the Camillus Elks Lodge. He's going to be giving a speech from 6 to 7:30. I'll be speaking as well. That's at 6117 Newport Road in Camillus on Thursday, May 16th.
Now, how far would you say that is from us?
I would say Camillus is probably between 90 minutes to 2 hours max, so it is a little bit of a haul, but I assure you it's going to be worth the trip.
Now, where are you based out of, like, headquarters-wise? Where's your campaign?
Syracuse, New York.
So it is Syracuse? Boy, that's kind of interesting when you think about the dynamics of Syracuse, that's where you're at. How much of your district comprises Syracuse? You don't have all of Syracuse.
No, Syracuse is all... Well, actually, no, I do have all of Syracuse. Syracuse is the largest municipality within the Senate District, and it is the Democrat stronghold, but roughly 60% of the district is rural, small farm town communities.
Oh, that's interesting. So you almost are dealing with a microcosm of New York State, meaning that you have the city, and will they get to decide what happens at the end of the day over the rural communities? So that's really interesting.
Yeah, it does make it a unique district, whereas many are either very urban or very rural. This one is a combination of the two. And it's funny that I'm headquartered in the Democratic Ground Zero.
That's good, though.
It is, because it's like any impact that I can make there, long-term and short-term, is beneficial for our conservative values and for our party. So I don't take for granted the small towns. I spend a lot of time there, but I also want to make sure that I'm taking our ideas into the city of Syracuse. And I would encourage your listeners to take your ideas, whether you're in Corning, whether you're in Elmira, whether you're in Buffalo or Rochester, go right into Ground Zero. Every mind that you change is someone that wasn't changed before.
Yeah, and you don't know where they're going to go next. You know, that's what's so exciting when you see someone that's younger get involved and get excited about participating. Maybe it's not themselves running. Maybe it is helping get a petition signed or making those phone calls, whatever, because there is so much going on behind the scenes that if someone helps and volunteers for your campaign, I think I can speak for you on this, they become your best friend, a volunteer, because it's so helpful to have that support when you need to do so much, especially in a major market like that.
Absolutely. I mean, the amount of bonding that exists with volunteers is something that I can't even describe. I mean, the people that I've worked with in previous campaigns have really become some of my closest friends at this point. And we're actually going to be doing a volunteer breakfast coming up soon because I think those people often get forgotten in the conversations. We talk about the politicians, we talk about the laws, but we don't talk about the people who are in the trenches doing the work to get these representatives in office.
Doing the difficult work. I mean, it's not always fun. We just have a minute here, but going back to the petition process, it's not always fun knocking on that door, going in blind, not knowing if that person's going to like you, dislike you, what they're going to have to say. But boy, talk about an important part of the campaign, because how much did you learn from talking to what would be your constituents on their front porch? That's when you get the best conversations.
That's how I determine my platform.
Yeah. Because people have such interesting, and it could be something you may not even have been aware of being a major issue. Again, it's kind of tough, especially when they have us get the petitions and then what time of year, but it is nice to talk with people and just get down to the nitty gritty and find out what exactly is affecting their day-to-day life.
100%.
So just before we go, one last time, it's VoteCalebSlater.com. You can find out about the event coming up. You can make donations. You can volunteer. And maybe if you got an opportunity, I'd love to have you on before you go on the primary day.
Absolutely.
So anytime you want to come on, you're welcome here. And thank you to all the people today who reached out and said comments and said hi, and congratulations and good luck, okay?
Thank you very much.
All right, please join us tomorrow morning starting at 6 a.m. for Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. Our guest will be Chris Callis with the College Fair coming up tomorrow, so don't miss that. Chris Callis will be joining us. We've got other special guests coming up throughout the week during the Steuben Senior Services Fund interview section of our program. So make sure you tune in every morning. I can't give them all away, but we do have a couple big ones coming up that I think you're really going to find interesting. So have a great day, everyone, and join us tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. for Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV, Big Fox.